Good morning, dear colleagues. We are happy to welcome you to the international session devoted to the fishery complex development, fishery skills. As you know, it is held in the framework of the Fishery Skills International Educational Forum. The organizers of this forum are three entities. First of all, the Federal Agency for Fisheries, BRICS, Skills Development Working Group. We have quite a tight program today. Open the second slide, please. We are going to discuss the key trends in the development of fishery industry in Russia and abroad. Also, the role of international standards and best practices. And we'll also discuss intelligent fishing. And I now would like to introduce our key speakers to you. It is Andrei Mikhailevich, Head of the Economics and Investment Division, Federal Agency for Fisheries. Next, Alina Doskanova, Deputy Director General Skills Development Agency, Chairperson of the Russian section of the BRICS Skills Development Working Group. Also, we have online speakers today. Today with us is the chairman of the Chinese section of the BRICS Business Council Skills and president of BRICS Academy of Skills, Dr. Lu Jianin. And a bit later, he will address us online. Also, the Yulia Aldushina, reader of the St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. Also present is Alexander Nedostup, Commercial Fisheries Skill Manager. Also, from Kaliningrad University, Inna Titova, Fish and Seafood Processor Skills Manager. Another foreign speaker is Professor of Salmon Ocean Vocational College, Mao Chun Wei, who will also speak online, and then Konstantin Kaisin, Head of Education Organizations and Future Skills Development Department, who will also join us later online. Let us start now. First of all, before we start, I'd like to make a few notes to improve our procedures. First of all, I'd like everybody to keep silent during presentations. We will give you time for your questions at the end of presentations. We are broadcasting this session both in Russian and English. You may use translation kits to have the translation, and video broadcasts are also carried out in two languages, in Russian and English. Well, without much ado, I'd like to give the floor now to our first speaker, Andrei Mikhailevich, to cover the key trends in the development of modern fishing in Russia and abroad. Thank you very much, Anna. Good morning, dear colleagues. I don't want to tire you with too many statistics or charts. I'd like us to have a vivid discussion. That's why I'd rather like to visualize what is being done in this sector. First of all, a few words about fishery industry in Russia. The industrial production started at the end of the 1940s, and over 20 or 30 years, it turned into a mass-scale complex of fisheries, which was regulated at the topmost level, and which also included transportation, good processing facilities, and obviously educational universities. Not everything has been quite smooth. It's impossible to keep growing on a steady basis. 20 or 25 years ago, the production of fish went down to 4 million tons. Obviously, we need to think about a starting point to develop. That's why in the year 2000, the key areas of development of the fishery complex were adopted, and we are going to discuss them. Today, Russia is one of the top 5 fishing countries. Well, we still have a lot of room to improve our performance. Speaking about the industrialization in the complex, speaking about the material support, initially our fishery fleet was outdated, built back in Soviet times, and the vessels were 30 or 40 years old. Not too many young specialists wanted to operate them. Today, for would-be worker of the fishery complex, there are certain important things such as good working conditions, a good salary, experience to be gained during work, and in this way there have been several developments. First of all, the building of a fishery fleet that was in conformity with environmental requirements. Next, we had to move away from the raw materials model, from, that is to say, when only in most cases it was frozen fish with too little processing facilities. And so it was decided that we needed not just simple fishing vessels, but rather a kind of fishery plants, both at sea and also at shore. We could see that we needed good processing facilities on shore. And here's one of the examples, a vessel that was built for the northern sea basin. It's a modern trawler. It was quite expensive to invest, with thousands of jobs created through its building. Today, around 300 billion rubles, that is to say around $5 billion, is the value of the fishing vessels. A few more statistics. Over the last year and the 8 months of the current year, we have tripled the construction of minced fish, and we also improved quite dramatically the production of fillet fish. As far as onshore plants and facilities are concerned, it is not just small factories. It is, as a matter of fact, separate, standalone facilities that include all the necessary services for processing, for mooring vessels by the processing factories. It also includes the refrigerators and the production facilities. And the volume of investment that I mentioned will make it possible for us to build around 150 fishing vessels of the fishing fleet and around 27 fishery plants. By now, 10 fishing vessels and 21 fishery plants have been built. Well, speaking about the current status, possibly we cannot boast of a great growth yet. The 27 processing plants account for around 24,000 jobs created through their construction. So what are the challenges that we have had? As a matter of fact, quite a few things were lost in several decades ago, above all competencies. Besides that, at that time, 80% of components were imported, so that meant that we needed growth points to start with. Today, due to the problems created by the pandemic and other problems, there is shortage of power plants and navigation instruments, and also processing equipment necessary both for sea vessels and onshore plants. I believe that these are the key areas in which we, as young specialists, need to start working today. Those of you who attended the plenary session yesterday know, as it was stated there, that aquaculture is developing side by side with the fishery around 300,000 tons of fish are farmed based on aquaculture, and we still have a lot of room to improve because the actual demand is 3 times higher. The gap has been covered through imports from Norway, Latin America, and certainly Southeast Asia. Now, we cannot do it anymore in terms of import. However, there are problems with stock material and also problems due to the absence of the necessary feed. That's why we need specialists trained to work with processing and selection. I believe that by 2030, we will be able to more than double the production in the fishery complex. And certainly, there are a lot of interesting stories in this field, and above all, a lot can be said about the educators, the educational institutions, both high specialized schools, and fishery universities. Well, dear colleagues, these are the key areas in which we have been working today, and for the future, we'd like the younger generation to be able to complete what we have started and to give a follow-up to our start. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrei Gennadievich, for your brief presentation. You mentioned in your presentation that it is important to train highly skilled specialists for the sector, and it is one of our priorities. As it goes without saying. And so the next speaker, Alina Doskanova, will dwell on this subject, who will speak on the role of international standards and best practices in the development of countries' national economics and personnel training systems. Well, dear colleagues and partners, I'm really quite glad to speak side by side with experienced speakers today. We have just got a general picture of the trends for the future, and now we are going to discuss the mechanisms existing for developing education in the sector. When we have heard now about the plans for developing the sector, we understand that each one of the workers at his or her workplace should have certain skills and should know how to operate the equipment they have to meet the needs of the company he or she works for. So there are goals now and targets for the fishery complex for further development. Besides that, we need to take into account the partnerships that have been formed in the process and our international activities. And also, we should remember that this sector is important both for the Russian Federation as well as for our international partners. And we, as the agency for skills development, deal with developing skills for the sector and educational programs. An important part of it is that when we speak about the skills to be used for professional training, normally the training takes several years. And so what does our skill development agency do? Well, we understand that the sector is developing very fast, and that's why we need to update our educational programs. They should be bridged, they should be flexible and quite responsive. So we therefore need to update the programs in line with the development of the sector. Also, we should speak about the production cells. I'd like to call on you to visit the H2 championship area in this hall after the session, where you would be able to see what is done. I'd like to thank our colleagues for the opportunity to do it. And also, as a rule, there are officials from various educational institutions and from business. And this year, though, our international speakers will take part in our session online. So when we speak about the development of standards, we are based not on theoretical knowledge, but rather on practical case studies accumulated across the world, both for the fishery sector and the Russian Fishery Agency when it comes to with the development of competencies worldwide. And now let's start presenting these competencies. Thank you very much for your presentation. As just mentioned by Alina Doskanova, international cooperation is extremely important to develop this sector. So before we speak about the best practices here and abroad, let's listen to a presentation by Dr. Lu Jianin from China to share his opinion about the development of the fishery sector for China. Dr. Lun, can you hear us? Dr. Lun, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Dr. Lun?
Yeah, okay.
Мы вас слышим хорошо. Можете...
We can hear you well, so you may start your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and good evening. Nice to meet you, all of you. I'm very pleased to be invited by the Russian Skill Development Working Group to participate in this international development of the fishery skills for BRICS remote auditorium of skill development and technology innovation. On behalf of China section of BRICS Business Council Skill Development Working Group, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Russian Skill Development Agency and the Russian Skill Development Working Group for organizing this forum. The BRICS Business Council Skill Development Working Group has 5 deliverables this year. They are: the first is setting up the BRICS Skill Standardization Working Committee and the BRICS Business Council Skill Development Working Group, developing vocational skill standard and issue skill passport. The second, to cooperation on future skill training base in BRICS country to cultivate a skill professional. The third, establishing a long-term mechanism for BRICS remote auditorium of skill development and technology innovation, with the purpose to carry out the theoretical and technical discussion as well as the skill training. The number 4 is establishing the BRICS Academy of Skill Development and Technology Innovation to serve the skill development of BRICS country. The number 5, to continue to organize BRICS Future Skill Challenge and the Future Skill Training Camp, so as to refine the remote competition and the training mechanism. I am delighted to be invited to these international forums on fisheries skill development as an important part of the BRICS Auditorium of Skill Development and Technology Innovation. As a long-term of BRICS Auditorium of Skill Development and Technology Innovation develops Industry 4.0 as the core of intelligent manufacture technology, artificial intelligence, digital technology skills, future technical skill as the theme, through soft skill training to promote high-level skills, international cultural exchange, talents cultivation, and skill development, has been successfully held twice. For example, the Forum on Big Data helps accurate pandemic prevention, and talents cultivation, and the Forum of Virtual Simulation Technologies and its application have received wide attention from BRICS countries. Marine living resources are not inexhaustible resources, but will go through a process of untapped stage to the growth stage and to the fully exploitation stage, finally to the transitional development stage and eventually collapse stage. We should maintain the sustainable development of fishery, use modern technology to continuously apply to fishery, pay more attention to the application and the development of new technologies, new process for agriculture and fishery industry products, socialize the mass production, entrust modern fishery to develop strong vitality. Once again, I would like to thank the various BRICS Business Council Skill Development Working Group for continuously cooperation and support in our work. In particular, I would like to express my gratitude to the Russian Skill Development Agency for your contribution to the BRICS Business Council Skill Development Working Group. In conclusion, I sincerely hope that these forums will be a complete success. I wish all the leaders, guests, and partners, and good health and all the best. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu, for your input. Thank you for sharing with us your vision, your perspectives about the most important development of fisheries in China that is as important for China as for Russia. We also have some common spheres of interest as two countries. We will be then cooperating in these areas, also in the framework of the fishing industry. In your input, you mentioned the importance of developing new technologies in the industry, and I now suggest focusing on best Russian focuses and practices in this regard. We will start with Russian practices, and then we will hear from international practices. I'd like to give the floor to our expert, Yulia Aldushina. She's our expert, and she will tell us about the secrets of the aquaculture skill. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear guests. I'm happy to welcome everyone at our panel session. I'm happy to see many young faces here in the audience, in the floor. Again, this is important because the skills we are presenting are already mainstreamed, and they lead to good results delivered by young specialists. Of course, future depends on young people, on young experts, and of course, we hope that these young experts will be able to do what we failed to do. To start with presenting our skills, I suggest looking at our visualization of the aquaculture skill, first of all. Aquaculture is providing conditions for the sustainable development of agriculture and create sustainable conditions of aquaculture. This task is the most important for the Agency for Fisheries Development. The tasks of the modern aquaculture includes creation of high-performance fisheries, as well as improving technologies, creating high productive breeds and using the genome engineering methods, as well as forming the products and other areas with the artificial reproduction, and also the increase of feed capacities of water bodies. The cultivation of the development of these areas will ensure the need for the feeding and health of fish. Analysis and review of data from fish farmers is a source of knowledge, and this is to help develop aquaculture objects. And of course, fish farmers' qualifications are important to provide sustainable approaches to fish feeding and represent fish reproduction. Of course, we are focusing on the development of shellfish as well, and of course for that we need specialists to have all the sufficient knowledge in this field at all life cycles. We've heard the expression more than once that the reserves of the world's oceans are inexhaustible. However, they are running out. We must help the world's oceans to reproduce enough fish. In this directions, the leading role is played by fish breeders whose professional training we conduct at a high quality level. Thank you. If you can, please run the slides on the skill. I'd like to tell you a few points about the tasks and objectives which we used to develop this skill, and I would like to tell you about our results, which we have reached in the recent several years, reached by experts and educational institutions involved in training of specialists. First of all, I'd like to tell you that the key objective is to prepare high-quality talent for these people to go and work at farms and fisheries. We want these fisheries to be as efficient as possible. We want these people to be able to control technical means and technologies. And of course, this is important because many of these systems are already automatic. Several years ago, we started the development of this skill, and we began developing a few aspects of this profession. We started from the youngest element in this area, which is our youth. Now, what are the experts within this skill? These are the experts working with biogens in fisheries. They work with fish in fish sites and non-fish sites, working with the technical equipment, with technical processes. They ensure their continuous functioning. They work with feeding. They also work with prevention and diagnostics of diseases. So these are the various aspects which specialists need to know about, and which they need to know how to work with, demonstrating their skills in working with these areas. I'd like now to focus on why this skill has been developing rapidly and why aquaculture in the recent decades has attracted a lot of attention and has been growing actively. In this diagram, we see that the global fisheries has been growing sustainably, and we see that aquaculture is not that successful. The biggest growth was reached in 2017. Aquaculture is also growing. It is growing in sea and marine areas, and also in shorelines and in rivers. Speaking about the objects, the sites engaged in aquaculture, you all see them on your tables, in your kitchens, in shops. We first of all are focused on fishing farms. They are playing a great part, but we also have shrimp and shellfish. This is another big sector, another big area of non-fish objects. We also are witnessing active development and artificial development and growth of seaweed. The trends have been showing that these three areas have been actively developing in the 21st century, and you can see that in the slide. Considering the development of aquaculture and considering all the global trends that we see, also looking at the strategy of fisheries development of Russia until 2030, we need also to develop our profile, our relevant training. We will need to raise awareness on fish farming professions, and considering all these aspects, there was a decision made to raise this awareness in society, and there was a decision made to create this skill in Russia, in our country. The specialists within this skill, the specialists of Kaliningrad Technical University, were participating in this effort. In the recent years, we've been working on this skill. We've been creating technical documentation on the skill, updating it, and adding new modules to this skill. We are now developing, we're engaging the medium element in this process. In the recent 2 years, as you see that in the slide, we have expanded our geography. We included Astrakhan and Moscow region in the effort. We also added St. Petersburg, Primorye territory, and Kamchatka territory in this effort. In 2022, we further expanded the representation of regions in our work, adding Astrakhan region, adding Krasnodar territory and Krasnoyarsk territory as well. We also remember that in the first year we had only relevant institutions involved, but last year, for the first time, we engaged a non-core vocational college from Krasnoyarsk, which demonstrated very high-level skills that were developed in the recent years. We have hosted 12 regional championships nationwide. We also hosted 2 final competitions. Besides, we also started building our expert community. It is still growing, and in this community we include teachers and also experts from enterprises. All these practical skills are delivered to students, and they get these skills using the equipment installed at enterprises, using the equipment used in the industry. So these students are ready to work in the industry by applying their professional skills in practice. The most recent potential in the development of the skill is not just developing nationwide. Many regions are training relevant specialists. Every year we are expanding the geography. We're also ready to develop internationally many specialists, many types of equipment is known to us, and we are ready to cooperate with all the BRICS countries and also with all the countries that are actively engaged in this process that want to cooperate with us. You see some of these countries that are global leaders in the field of aquaculture. Looking at specialist skills, so what actually students are doing within this competency, within this skill. First of all, experts developed 5 sections, which you see in your screens. First section is about workplace arrangement, organizing the work process, working with technical documents, working with the technical equipment, and with different graphic materials. The third section here is a biological basis of growing hydrobionts, which is a necessary element of education, which we need to consider when we train this talent. The fourth section here is the design, working principles, operating procedures of fish breeding equipment, and the fifth section here is biotechnical processes in aquaculture. This is something which is also very important. All these sections, all these educational sections are included in the skill at the moment. Specialists need a number of competencies, a number of skills. They are trained within the 3 modules of training. We created competition tasks for these contestants, and you see them in the slides. There are 3 modules now. The first module is incubating of eggs and rearing of juvenile fish. The second module, Module B, is regulation and operation of fish farming equipment. And Module 3, or Module C, is about solving of production or situational tasks that emerge during the application of this equipment. Indeed, these specialists need to know how to understand what is happening with live objects, but they also need to know how to maintain the equipment. So these are the operations that are performed by contestants at various educational sites. Again, we have these 3 modules. We split them in 3 days within the 6 hours of every day. They demonstrate their skills, both practical skills and also theoretical skills, being able to calculate different indicators. So they actually copy many live production processes in this training, in these modules. Focusing on the educational stage. Today in Russia and in our region, we have 3 stages of education. We have basic training, we have secondary education, and we have also higher education and postgraduate education as well. The skill today involves students of the medium professional education stage. When they finish their education, they become experts or become technicians. After that, they can proceed their learning in universities, go to a college, and then get a BA or an MA degree. Then after that, the 3rd stage for these students is the postgraduate stage for research activities. In conclusion, I'd like to mention that many international universities today are training specialists in this area. We are working with some of these schools quite actively. We're in contact on different issues and questions. So this cooperation is in place. This is something which students can use as well. They can use the experience of international schools to get new knowledge and new skills. The experts of Kaliningrad Technical University developed a set of documents. One of these documents is the skill layout plan. So this is the layout of the site used for training. So this is the site where students get their practical knowledge and skills. This site traditionally includes an extensive working area which accommodates fish farming equipment and tools. There are also some rooms for contestants. There is a expert room and a briefing room as well. We always need this briefing room to present the results to all the participants. The competitions are always open, and it's always possible to visit these competitions to see at what skills are represented there and what are the participants of these competitions. In this slide, you can see some of the aspects on how we involve students in these activities, what operations are performed by students at these sites, at these manufacturing sites. We now are focusing to have these areas not only on the basis in the premises of enterprises, but also at schools, at universities, so that they can train their skills without the need to leave the premises of their universities or schools. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all the experts engaged in the development of the skill, in its furthering, and I'd like to thank you once again for that. I'm hopeful that we will be working together going forward in these new contexts, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you, Yulia, for your very informative input and presentation. I think probably there are some questions from the floor about the secrets behind this skill. We have a roving mic in the hall, so you can use it to ask a question. We also have an international session. We have Brazilian guests, Mauritius guests, Thailand guests, South Africa guests, and Costa Rica guests represented in this floor, in this hall. Our colleagues on the online mode, you can send your questions to the chat. We will read them out. As for the colleagues here in the hall, if you have a question, please raise a hand, and our organizers will help you with the mic, with the roving mic, please.
Так, ну,
Well, there are no questions at the moment. As a matter of fact, I have a question. Well, Mrs. Yulia Kazimirovna, you mentioned in your presentation that a number of countries have joined the process of skill development. Which of the countries, to your mind, has advanced most dramatically, well, in terms of growth of resources and consumption volume? First of all, it is the Asian countries which are also the largest producers of fish products. And also our university has taken part in a number of important international programs. We have been closely cooperating with the university from China, including Shanghai, and also we have been exchanging experiences in the field of processes. We have been exchanging trips to visit our colleagues. We have been using the most high-tech technologies to develop this process. Thank you very much. Well, we are speaking just the same level, the same language here. Well, in terms of development, let us once again thank you. And now let's move on to the next presentation. Presentation on commercial fishery skills. Thank you. It is Mr. Alexander Nedostup. We all know that fishing is one of the oldest industrial centers worldwide at the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. And let us first have a look, let us first watch a videotape, a brief videotape. Well, a specialist of T94 competence engages in the creation and operation of commercial fishing. These skills are based on midwater and bottom operations. They use various tools for coastal fishing. The specialists are responsible for getting the trawlers ready for further operation. The project of fishing development requires various skills. The specialists in this area need to have a high level of technical knowledge and have a good knowledge, among other things, of the special equipment, the use of ropes, and they should also have a high level of technical knowledge in the field of their design and the implementation of design standards. Besides that, they should know how to use 3D modeling programs. Everybody knows, well, an old man started fishing and all of a sudden caught a goldfish, as Alexander Pushkin once said. Well, that's why we want to get our specialists ready to do the whole cycle of operations to finally catch a goldfish. And now I may start with my presentation. Well, dear colleagues, just as mentioned by Yulia Kazimirovna, in order to create a competence, we needed to analyze the worldwide developments. We needed to be based not on the educational or professional standards within the sector. We needed just to evaluate what is done to review what is done at fishing plants, at fishing vessels, to see what needs to be done to provide for the training of high-quality specialists within the shortest time possible, to make it possible for them to work at a high professional level. Just recalling what they were taught during their college years. So we try to bridge the gaps in this area. The trawling is the key type of fishing operations, and it accounts for 70% of all fishing operators. So deep water trawls that are used here are employed to catch fish distributed in the water body. We need to apply state-of-the-art technologies which are available today. We also need to have vessels built, and also to know how to properly maintain them, because after a certain period of time, they need to be repaired and maintained. And that's why we needed to analyze the situation worldwide. The countries that produce hydrobionic resources. Russia produces around 5 million tons. In the Soviet Union, though, it was 12 million tons. That's why the Russian fishery complex has quite ambitious targets. It is really hard work, and we need to apply the latest knowledge, and all these skills and competences need to be taught at colleges. Here are the countries that are the key producers, both fresh and frozen fish. A lot of people work in the sector worldwide, and the fishery sector is one of the most important economic sectors for coastal states. We started our work for developing this kind of skills in Russia in 2019. I mean, our Kaliningrad Polytechnical School, we needed to analyze everything that was done worldwide in the field of fishing fleet and in all the other related areas. In 2019, therefore, we prepared the necessary documentation, and then in 2020 and 2021, with the participation of the Kaliningrad Oblast, St. Petersburg, Kamchatka Krai, and Vladivostok, we started conducting national championships, and the finals were held twice in Primorye in 2021 and 2022. The winners of the championships were awarded the awards by the championships. The documentation keeps being updated year after year, taking into account the latest development. We still have to remember about the need to build new modern vessels, to apply the latest technologies for fishing. These are the factors we need to take into account while designing the documentation. And as I have already said, we're not alone in this sector. Lots of countries deal with both coastal fishing and ocean fishing, which includes China, Turkey, Morocco, Israel, Brazil, India, and South Africa. All of them can potentially take part in our international championships. We are willing to welcome them to our championship and even to properly update our documentation. So here are the key elements of the system to assess the performance. This is shown in percentage. It deals with designing trawlers with the use of software, communication, equipment, work, and operation. So all of these items are part of training for our students who are taught in industrial fishing. The skills modules are 4, which they include the development of technical design of the trawl. Next is making a mock-up copy of a trawl. In this case, this model uses all the elements that are required for a real size trawl. Next is maintenance and repair, which is also an important element of operating trawls. And finally, it is work at sea. Here you can see a mock copy of a real trawl, and certainly we cannot use real trawls because that would be too expensive. That's why we use a mock-up model, and when we teach how to use the gear, it ensures the safety of fishing operation, because unfortunately recent graduates of universities, when they go to the sea in the first years of their career, need to obtain the necessary experience before they become before they are promoted to higher positions. For this purpose, we need to apply not only high-tech technologies and software, but also think about safety at sea. Well, we have 22 hours to perform the modules, which includes the development of the trawl technical design. Next is making a trawl mock-up. Currently at the sectoral championship site, they are making such a model. Next is repair of tears and breaks, and finally it is operation. Here is as you can see, 22 hours are required for the students to perform their labor functions, which such as designer, manufacturer, and also as a maintenance specialist and operator. Number 3 and 4 are shown there. And speaking about the educational level, we prepared our tender documentation certainly to train students in workers' profession that are provided by colleges. In St. Petersburg, there is a St. Petersburg Industrial College, which is a branch of the Kaliningrad College. And also there are 2 in Vladivostok and Nakhotka, and 2 more colleges in the north of Russia. Speaking about the level, naturally, it is technical specialist. Normally, it is technical specialist, and the higher education, that is to say, obtaining a bachelor degree, includes 4 years of education with practices at sea, and with higher education, only captain mates can only captain mates should have it. But first, all the graduates need to get experience in working as sailors. After that, they become master sailors, then troll sailor, then production master, and so on. The salaries payable to them at sea are quite high, starting from 100,000 rubles, which is quite worthy salary for young people. And we also have women working at our vessels and in the system. And we have various colleges and universities in China, India, and Nigeria. They train specialists in production, which can be colleges or professional schools. The training process for makers is fewer hours, but for troll masters it is up to 400 hours, for between 36 hours of standard units or in hours. Next is the skill layout plan for 5 jobs, for 5 workplaces. It should take them 4 hours to make a troll and then to install it. And obviously it takes 3 laborers professions. This is a photo taken during a championship. That's the workplaces from the St. Petersburg Fishery College. We should also acknowledge the inputs of various companies that produce the documentation and also the sponsors. And we should also thank the experts community, which is made up of people who have devoted many years of their life to developing the sector, to maintaining relations with the businesses. I'd like to thank such experts such as Alexander Bonk, Nikolai Meleshko, and Yuri Bondaletov. And I do hope that we, in several years from now, will be able to develop the documents required for championships of a international level.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you for your input. I believe that our colleagues connected online have been encouraged with your speech, and they started already working and delivering and hosting, actually preparing for the championship. It will be an international championship by all means. Probably, are there any questions for the speaker and our online colleagues? You can send in your questions to the chat. We would be happy to take your online questions. Any questions from the floor? Please raise your hand if you have a question, and our colleagues will give you our roving mic. I have a small question, a quick question, while we're waiting for other questions. We see that the English version of the skill is called commercial fishery. Does that mean that this area is the most expandful in terms of resources and volumes? Well, the general term used internationally is commercial fishery. We also have coastal fishery. as a term in our legislation. We have both coastal fishery and commercial fishery, which are separate domains, but the most general term is commercial fishing, commercial fishery. Of course, this has nothing to do with artisanal fishing, with fishing with a fishing rod. If there are no questions for Alexander, we'd like to focus on another very important skill, which is the processing of sea resources. We see that yesterday we've had half of the forum, and Miss Ina Titova will be happy to present this skill. Fish and seafood processor skill will be delivered. Of course, we couldn't feed half of the forum participants yesterday. Of course, all we are doing, we're doing that for the sake of people. We're doing that for the satisfaction of people's needs. This is what we're doing, and all these free skills are parts of this unified effort to build this overall system of feeding, of delivery, very useful products for our people. We fish, we then have to process these products. And the key thing is to have a good processing for people to get high-quality fish products and safe products. Well know that fish products are the most useful products, are the products that are most useful for people's health, and this comprehensive approach is used to ensure the food security of our country. If, please, you can run the video. The T93 skills includes fish and seafood processor, and we see that it's one of the most important elements in the structure of the fish industry. We see that this is one of the key elements here in the fish industry. The range of professional skills differs significantly depending on the region. And this actually creates higher conditions, higher requirements for the specialists involved in the processing of bioresources. These experts need to understand the specifics of processing organization, the methods of work time planning and management. They also have to consider the possibility of professional promotional. The following points are included in the competition, which is the safety management, providing quality control, as well as working with equipment and controlling quality, working with regulatory and technical documentation. The important the significant value is also about respecting hygiene rules and labor safety rules. Many specialists, many experts are involved in this process of finding fish, processing fish, and those people who are involved in the delivery of fish products to people are these technologists of fish products. Our university is training such specialists. Kaliningrad Technical University is also part of this process, and it can train such experts as well. We saw that in the video that, of course, there is a lot of manual labor engaged in this process. When we were working on this video, we were focusing on many manual operations to be demonstrated there. Today, our production process, our modern ships, our modern production facilities are different. When we deliver fish to the production site, we have a conveyor belt, we deliver it there, and then we get these ready products out as an output. Our representative of a Kamchatka-based company is working on our side, and he is telling us that, of course, it's very important to let people know that it's possible to use equipment. He also telling that he is used to checking the quality of fish manually. So this means that the level of qualifications needed is always growing, looking and focusing on what kind of skills are needed for this processor skill. We need to focus on a number of areas, which is the production of food and technical products. We also are focused on creating semi-products for the medical industry and for the feed industry. Of course, this includes a lot of areas, and that's why the knowledge must include chemistry, technical skills, and the qualification level must be very high. Again, the working skill, on the other hand, also includes training in all these aspects in a limited and very specialized scope. Very often, these working skills include delivering and developing skills for some specific regions. We know that in our global consumption, we have seen the growth of fish consumption in every region, in every country. There is a dedicated pattern. The dedicated fish types are processed and used there, and of course dedicated processes are applied. Looking at the world consumption of fish per capita, we see that traditionally we see such countries as Japan, Korea, as well as Norway. In these countries, the fish consumption is much higher. At the same time, we see that in our country, the fish consumption has been steadily ramping up, growing. This means that young people are getting accustomed to eating fish, and of course we need to have awareness-raising programs in place to help our young people stay healthy and have a good mood. Raising consumption volumes, of course, requires more specialists involved in processing. We were developing the skill, so we delivered that in 3 stages. So we had some pilots, and then after that we expanded that to the wider education level. Our geography in 2021 is quite large. It includes colleges and schools that are relevant for the industry, and it also includes the colleges that do not have any industrial attribution. They understand that for the needs of their regions, the training of experts in the field of fish processor and the processing of water bioresources is a significant factor for the development of cities. We have Kamchatka, we have Sakhalin, and the Far East as well. We have Salihard on this geography map. Included that as well on the initiative of their college from Salihard. We delivered a dedicated module in this area, which is focused on the processing of Nordic fish. Again, all the BRICS countries, all the marine countries are involved in the development of these specific approaches and technologies in this area. We are open for further cooperation. We are open for further knowledge. We understand that when we produce food products, we need to focus on a number of areas. There are a number of specific aspects to that, which is related to the fact that we are creating products consumed by people, consumed by population. Of course, the key thing is the safety of products. So this means that sanitary norms and regulations should be respected in manufacturing sites and by people in terms of hygiene. It also includes and involves a lot of teamwork, the possibility, the capability of working in a team together, working with the conveyor belt. This is really a very important factor, and this is really a very important skill which we're trying to develop in our graduates. You also see the key parameter, the key section here is which is parameter C, conducting technological operations, having the biggest weight. You know that there are many types of products, and of course it is not always possible to consider all aspects of producing these different products. At the same time, we also think that it's important to work with equipment and to know how to do it, to work with documents, regulatory documents, normative documents, regulate safety. This is this safety factor which is important, and this is important for this skill specifically and important for the work of these processors. This is one of the most significant aspects in this area. In this slide, you see these pictures from the education from the training sites. These sites are located both at colleges and at enterprises. Overall, we have several modules, and in these modules we included different parts of the processing process. We have Module A, which is manufacturing of chilled and frozen products. We have Module B on manufacturing of salted and pickled products. We have the canned food Module C, Module D on manufacturing of semi-finished and culinary products, Module E manufacturing of cold and hot smoked products, and the Module F, the one we like best, is processing of northern fish, which is something that helps us support the consumption of the small northern population and these distant populations living somewhere very far away. In Astrakhan, for example, we train them how to cook northern fish very well, and in this picture you see that this northern fish was processed in Astrakhan, not somewhere else. We also understand that there are different types of products and fish which we get from the Baltic Sea or from Astrakhan or from a internal water body. All these types are very different, so we need to consider this when we create recommendations for the education in this area. We try to set up specific programs for different regions that would help them to train highly qualified specialists, ranging from working professions to highly qualified specialists and experts having secondary education. For example, working using at the canning machine, for example, requires many technical skills and skills which involve computer programming and other skills as well. So we do whatever it takes to train all these skills for all our students. Our skill is very intensive, it's very labor intensive. It is 22 hours long. Each module lasts 3-4 hours. We are trying to minimize the volume of work for the contestants to be able to demonstrate all their skills. We have both young and grown-up adult contestants working at manufacturing enterprises. They could demonstrate their skills in working with the equipment and other skills as well. Education is very important. Our graduates are working in fish processing plants, but they also work in the sea, and there are some specific aspects working there. We now have these new ships emerging with a very interesting equipment set installed on them, and this requires personnel, this requires staff which can operate this equipment working on board. We have secondary education, we have higher education, and all other stages are represented as well. When people want to have new products, then of course this requires the work of the technologist having a higher education degree. Yesterday we saw some recipes created by technologists, so they were created by our technologists, and they are working in the field of canned food. At the moment, of course, all these countries which have access to the sea, they are thinking of training specialists in the field of fish processing industry. They're working to educate and train technologists and higher cycle specialists. So we try to keep contact with these institutions. The technology in India or China is different from what we have in Astrakhan or in Kaliningrad, and the difference is very big. Besides that, we have a lot of marine hydrobionts or plants which is of course very important, and we understand that the approaches to processing them is very narrow and very specific. So our partners are delivering the technologies which we can apply to be able to develop the aquatic areas of the Pacific Ocean and the adjacent seas to make our people healthy and helping them live 100 years. Our colleagues mentioned that we are also offering, including a skill layout plan. Here, we tried to copy the real production area in this site, which covers all product types. You see several sectors on this layout. Different modules are working in a consecutive mode, and our contestants, our participants are moving from one block, from one section to a different section, working with different types of equipment. This also helps us respect all the rules in terms of safety and hygiene. We also have some areas at enterprises and at colleges as well. Of course, it's very good when students or contestants can train within their institution, within their college. And of course, it's good to have these facilities that are very true to life. Yet when these graduates come and visit the real enterprise, they have completely different impressions with all these speeds and everything moving around them. This practice they receive helps them get trained and use their skills in practice. In enterprises that have preserved this tradition of coaching from the Soviet time, where people are eager to transfer their knowledge and experiences, this approach gives very good results. And of course, when we visited our final tests, our final competitions, we saw the people there, the students there that were trained at enterprises, and we saw these investments of their coaches, and saw this difference of these people, of these students, from the students that were trained in colleges only. Of course, it's very good to offer these experiences for these students, and of course, it's also very good to tell them that they are protected, that they receive their knowledge, and when we start working in real enterprises, they can get good results, they can proceed with their education, and we feel that it is the right way, it is the right path for all of them, which we need to deliver and which we need to develop. I'd like to thank all my colleagues involved, engaged in the development and creation of this skill. Without their help, of course, this couldn't have happened. I'd like to thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Inna Markovna, for your presentation and for your invitation to witness the competition. And now, as usual, we suggest our online and offline audience asks questions. Yes, we seem to have somebody eager to ask a question. Good morning. Good morning. Could you please tell us, do we only have fish hydrobions products presented here, or it's also possible to learn something about the production of canned products, etc.? And what are the areas to cover for students? When we prepare the assignments, we actually overlook the mass-scale production. Yesterday, we were making semi-finished products and culinary products using squid and shrimps. Today, it is preserved products. I haven't seen the results of the championship. It's quite possible that quite promising recipes have been offered and possibly will be able to watch it today. And we are not speaking about seaweed yet, because in Yeysk and Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg, it's important to have seaweed of the same quality. That's why today we have mass resources and seafood such as shrimps and squid. They are most popular with us. Thank you very much. Well, dear colleagues, any more questions? Yes, please. There is a question from the second row now. Thank you very much for your presentation. Possibly it's a question for all the panelists. Well, I am mostly interested in coastal or commercial fishing and making of vessels, small-sized vessels. Well, it applies to Kaliningrad and also to the far east of Russia. What do you think about the fact that today, as you have stated, everything requires higher level technologies, so the graduates of your educational institutions look for the best job possible, and they should understand that the education that they have got meets the needs of the current market and is sought after in the market. So what do you think about it? What will happen with the commercial fishing? And as far as the graduates are concerned, will it be possible for them to be most efficient in their future career, whether the education and training they get meets the needs of today, and whether they will be able to move at the same pace as the progress in this sector? Yes, and maybe Mr. Alexander will help you. Well, first of all, I need to say that it is for the one who starts working who will cover the distance. Possibly it would not be quite modest for me to promote my native land. However, there is a fish farm there entitled For the Sake of Our Motherland, and their progress has been most noticeable in terms of fishing and in terms of transferring fish to the processing facilities. Everything is organized there very well, so our students are quite enthusiastic about working for them. And obviously, companies aim at depend on the educational training system, and even when there is a plant which is under maintenance or repair, at least in part, you should, they say, the plant people say, don't worry, we'll find a workplace for your students. That means that a lot depends on the responsibility that businesses have. When there is a response, when there is empathy, it doesn't mean that we need to give something material. Most important, it is more important to give the students a chance to learn special skills. So we have been quite a success in this kind of training. As you know, we have a system of employment for our graduates, and we can therefore look and evaluate the needs of the market. For instance, currently the specialists are needed for aquaculture, for perch, for crucian carp, for other fishes. So that is to say, everything depends on the orders in this area. Just like you in your business, we also depend on the orders for our graduates. They should know where they will go to work. And even if the initial salary is not too high, they will be glad to join a company they choose. So we also try to make people, young people who join our institutions just by chance, to develop the liking for this profession. And we also keep watching what is going on, but we would also like businesses to open their opportunity to us. Thank you very much. And speaking about commercial fishing, today there are certain changes to the regulations because there have been some delays as far as the fishing fleet is concerned. First of all, we need to have the adequate number of small tonnage vessels. Several weeks ago, cod and trawler was commissioned in Kaliningrad. Naturally, we need to think about the development of proper support, including logistics for the supply chain. And I think that within a year or two from now, a lot more interest will be taken in the Russian Federation in this area. Our borders are really huge. For instance, the Arctic Ocean or the Sea of Okhotsk, etc. So first of all, we should think where the vessel is registered, where it is kept. So I think that in the next few years there will be a big impetus given to the development of our fleet. I would like to add that our competencies are very closely connected to these cycles. In the Kaliningrad Oblast, the processors ask for raw materials, not necessarily from inland water borders, but also from the sea. And the European eel is a very precious product. And over recent years, artificially cultivated eel has become very popular. That's why we anticipate that in several years from now, it will help us to increase the stock of eel in the market, and we'll see more companies in the market processing eel. Thank you very much for your questions, dear colleagues, and to our panelists for such wide coverage of various aspects. Well, actually, we're a little bit behind our time schedule. I would ask those present here to leave the panelists, to leave their contact details to us, so that everybody could get in touch with them. We have two more speakers too. We have heard about the best international practices, and let's now listen to Professor Mao Chun-wei from China, who with a presentation on intelligent fishery. Я хотел бы рассказать вам,
Technical College. I will now organize the presentation into three categories. First, the big data era of the aquatic industry 4.0. Second, a computerized intelligent management system for fisheries. Third, the public service platform for smart fisheries, big data. Let's consider the first, which is big data era of the aquatic industry 4.0. Then we'll get an overview of recent aquaculture growth in China. Currently, China produces more than 68% of the world's aquaculture. Our output is top of the world, and the sector is expanding quickly. Currently, fish products provide 1/3 of the animal protein consumed by China's population. Consequently, aquaculture is crucial in guaranteeing the security of our nation's food supply. Of course, given the industry's quick expansion, there are a lot of issues. A deteriorating labor force, low agricultural efficiency, high farming dangers, dramatically increasing labor expenses, environmental protection, etc. are some of the examples of these factors. There are many regional bans on breeding. What will aquaculture look like in the future, and can this sector still grow? We refer to the current state of China's aquaculture business as the 4.0 era. Fisheries and traditional fish breeding are still practiced in the aquaculture 1.0 era. The 2.0 period introduces mechanization, buildings, industries, other structures and machinery. Information technology, automation and digitalization are used to create information-based fisheries in the 3.0 era. Next comes the 4.0 era, with the latest advancement in the Internet of Things, cloud computing, AI, and other technologies used in the aquaculture sector to create modern smart fisheries. We address the issues with the aquaculture industry's current stage of development and foster the industry's healthy and sustainable growth. Let's first discuss the smart fisheries. What exactly is the idea behind smart fisheries? To achieve intelligent management of aquaculture, it is necessary to use artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, big data, robots, 5G, and other emerging technologies to the aquaculture sector. On top of that, intelligent fisheries expert management systems must be developed. This is the industry's current accepted baseline idea of smart fisheries. Here are the components of our platform for smart fisheries. The water quality sensor is the first. It is positioned in the breeding pond's water. Additionally, there are meteorological stations that can track both environmental and meteorological data around the breeding pond. Add water and underwater monitoring, as well as video surveillance. Then, using Internet technology, this field data is uploaded to our server. Server network equipment uses automatic analysis and decision-making to precisely regulate the functioning of feeds and oxygenators. The following are methods for creating smart fisheries. First off, intensification, industrialization, and intelligence are the keys to the future of aquaculture growth. Second, we use machinery in place of physical work and computers in place of human decision-making. Third, we use the Internet of Things to give the machine intelligence. Fourth, we use big data, which helps us advance precision aquaculture. The intelligent fisheries operating paradigm is then introduced. This is mostly done through intelligent farming, which uses sensors, Internet of Things technology, and a combination of environmental, biological, operational, and other relevant factors to provide precise feeding, medication supply, intelligent equipment operation, and other required aspects. We also utilize information technology to gather pertinent data completely and properly, and leverage cloud computing and big data analysis to give fundamental support for management choices at all levels. Then we rely on the services intelligence. We use online platforms to ensure material purchases, product sales, technical training, insurance, and financial services, among others, that span the full value chain. Consequently, The smart fishery is the path to the future growth of the aquaculture business in China, as well as the global aquaculture industry. Introduction to the aquaculture development trends. Aquaculture has a challenging environment. It means a lot of work, high labor intensity, low output, and limited environmental resilience. Additionally, labor prices keep growing, there are hiring challenges, and a technical staff shortage in the aquaculture industry, and human expenses have increased significantly. On top of that, catastrophic failures are getting more frequent, the water quality is declining, and the primary breeding area disasters are becoming worse by the year. Therefore, monitoring, processing, and control of aquaculture water and ecological conditions to create the most suitable conditions for fish and shrimp, aquaculture organisms to improve the water environment to achieve the fastest production rate so that a unit of water can provide a higher yield are all done using automated equipment rather than manual management operations. Reducing the danger of breeding, the reliance on technical management staff, the labor intensity of management personnel, the consumption of energy, and the efficiency of production will all be achieved alongside social growth. An examination of the trend in the development of intelligent fisheries is provided further. We create a digital management platform and safety protection barrier for aquaculture through intelligent aquaculture equipment, enabling it to abandon the traditional practice of feeding on the sky and to advance towards industrialization, standardization, automation, digitalization, and intelligence. Here, we'll introduce a current fisheries digital intelligent management system based on the use of big data smart fisheries. These are the several elements that make up the smart fisheries management system that we are currently researching. There are 20 primary modules at this time. This is followed by the primary inclusion. Some use machinery in place of labor, freeing up human resources. On the other hand, software or netware replaces conventional human management in order to accomplish automated scientific analysis and judgment and properly direct the breeding process. Currently, there are 12 boards and 19 functional modules combined, respectively. Next, let's consider the benefits of smart fisheries analysis. Analysis of the potential for immediate cost reductions in the infrastructure and equipment used in smart fisheries. The first step is to increase breeding density and efficiency. The second is to decrease labor intensity. The third is to cut down on electricity use, and the fourth is to increase feed usage. Now, a study of indirect costs. First, we can produce fish and shrimp in the most favorable water environment possible, which results in the maximum output per unit of water, the lowest breeding risk, and the quickest growth. Second, there is prompt identification of anomalies, such as changes in water quality, feed residues, etc., and early warning. Third, successful experience may be scaled up thanks to the digital administration of the production process. Fourth, the production process may be tracked. Fifth, there's lower work intensity and simpler recruitment. Sixth, this improves the company's reputation. Then we have the Intelligent Fishery Public Service Platform, currently being developed as a framework for a fisheries networking system. The fisheries network is thus positioned as an internet network platform for fisheries. It creates an internet plus fishery platform for intelligent management and full value services, and it works hard to consolidate funding and expert advice in the aquaculture sector. The 8 components of the fisheries network we are creating are as follows. This is the country's fisheries network's real-time operating platform. Big Data Exchange. Next, we introduce the Public Service Platform for Aquaculture Equipment Safety Management that we are currently developing. The aquaculture industry's equipment frequently experiences common failures, including poor oxygenation, low feeding, etc. The failure of this equipment will therefore result in farming accidents. As a result, we've created a platform for public service at the Marine Vocational and Technical College. Real-time collection and transmission of data from the breeding bank, water quality measurements and video surveillance data from the breeding site will be added to our platform. Our platform has scheduled staff on duty. However, once information such as water quality parameters is discovered and it exceeds the safety range we specified, the system will immediately warn us. Automatic alert message transmission to the breeding bank. It will be possible to acquire and create a public service platform for big data in intelligent fisheries. The goals of smart fisheries research are as follows. First, we develop a comprehensive and effective model for each aquaculture species using big data research. Second, smart fisheries research goal 2. In order for aquaculture to move away from the traditional feeding on the sky practice and advance towards industrialization, standardization, automation, information digitization, informatization and intelligence, a public service platform for intelligent management of aquaculture must be established. Third, aquaculture needs a manager for each MU of farming water. Fourth, achieving automated aquaculture management is our ultimate objective. Currently, our attention is primarily focused on the following areas. First, correct feeding. Second, automatic detection of fish illnesses. And third, automatic monitoring and regulation of water quality. We anticipate the research in the above areas will help China steadily develop its unmanned aquaculture management system in the future. This technology will then be made available to the rest of the world to use. Therefore, unmanned aquaculture management is the ultimate objective of research regarding intelligent fisheries technology. Here is my contact information. You're invited to visit Xiamen Marine Vocational College at your earliest convenience. Thanks, everybody.
Ну вот, коллеги.
Thank you, colleagues. This was our international input, international practice, telling us about the development of the industry. Our Chinese colleagues probably would pass our gratitude to Professor Mao Chunwei. And our last speaker for today, he will be logically continuing building on the topic of the new technologies and development of fishery industry. I would like to give the floor to Konstantin Kaisin. Please, you have the floor. Konstantin is joining us in an online mode. Please, you have the floor. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Indeed, my presentation will add to what has just been presented by the previous speaker, but I will present a different aspect of this area, working with talent and skills. First of all, I'd like to outline a few main points looking at the prospective professions that we need to develop. Let's focus on our work methods. Speaking about new technologies and future, speaking about new skills needed, we always start from research. We start from researching global trends and technologies. So we do that to understand what will be happening next. The second step is about description of the skill, being able to describe what kind of jobs are going to be created and what kind of skills will be needed in particular industries. And the third step, which is the most critical in working with this future development, is working with education. We don't just need to describe the skills, we need to ensure people trained in these skills. In the recent 7 years, we've been working to develop this future skills area. In this process, we have been covering these research steps down to developing these skills and working with education, spanning over 40 skills or competencies in various sectors of the economy, also involving and including in the field of fishing industry. Adding to what has just been said in the previous presentation, we saw there that speaking about the future of the industry, there is a lot to be said about new skills and technologies that need to be added. And these technologies are about these end-to-end approaches, end-to-end digital approaches, which is not linked to the traditional skills needed in this area. There are different skills for the fishing industry. This means that speaking about talent, we need people trained in these areas. Specifically, we need IT specialists, we need specialists in the field of program management or cloud computing, IoT, and everything related to robotization and automation of manufacturing. We also need people trained in biotechnologies, being able to increase the performance. So these are the areas that we are mainstreaming, that we need to focus on. We need to think about the technologies that would enhance the performance. And we also need to remember about the skills, the knowledge needed for that. We also need to remember that we would need talented people to be able to work in these professions, being able to implement these new technological cutting-edge solutions. Again, speaking about the digital areas in the field of development, we need to not just focus on our specific industries. We probably would need to attract these specialists from other industries as well. Further, we don't have that much time. I'd like to just present one more quick aspect from my side. I'd like to focus on a different aspect in our discussion of the future skills. A year ago, we conducted a survey, which was an international survey involving experts from 49 countries, being able to understand the key skills for the next decade. We researched these skills in various sectors of the economy. At the end of this survey, we outlined the four main groups of skills that would be required, that would be relevant for any sector of the economy, including the industry we are discussing today. These skills here, as you can see in the slide, are not linked to a particular technology. They are related rather to this growing demand for some specific professions in the field of production. There are new professions emerging, and some skills are becoming critical. They are related to people's communication. They are related to the link across and among people of various professions. This includes also some knowledge management skills that would actually help these people work with these very complex intellectual systems. So these are cognitive skills that are represented here, and we also have these green skills that are also shown in the slides. This is, of course, much wider than the environment. It's about ecology, of course, about lean production and regenerative economy. So all these groups of skills will be important in the next decade. Being a specialist at any level, you would require these skills. Being a technologist or a manager of a manufacturing facility, you would need these skills in your further work. If you have these skills, you will be able to make your work as efficient as possible. It will also support further performance. It will also support creating new products or technological solutions going forward. Having these skills would also support the implementation of new ideas going forward. In conclusion, I'd like to ask a question, a general question for the audience today, and probably give you some food for thought on how we can demonstrate these four groups of skills in your professions, in your enterprises. So how can you use these skills to make specialists more efficient, and what kind of technologies, what kind of specialists from other industries you would want to involve, you would want to use to transform your production facilities, your manufacturing sites, making them more efficient. Thank you. Thank you, Konstantin. Again, dear colleagues, this is the conclusion of our international session. I'm hopeful that you now have a comprehensive understanding about the international development in the fishing industry. I'd like to thank our distinguished speakers and panelists for their informative inputs and speeches today, and also I would like to thank our online participants. I'd like to thank our translators. Thank you for your support. Thanks to your input, you helped us to have this international exchange. We would like to thank our technical team as well. I'll leave you my contact. So if you have any questions for our speakers, just send them to us, and we will read all of them and give you our feedback as soon as possible. I'd like to thank you for your participation and see you soon.